Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, and we are back for another video on Marvel Strike Force. Now, we had some pretty big news yesterday. It might not have seemed like much because the blog post itself was fairly short, but I want to talk about what kind of implications that's going to have on the game going forward. And I think it's kind of funny actually because normally, there's periods of time in Marvel Strike Force when I say that the game is doing really great and it's the best, it's the best time it's ever been for Marvel Strike Force. And while that's true, I am very concerned that this latest bit of news is going to mean potentially some player unfriendly changes in the future. And we're going to get into further detail as to what I think and why in this video. So if you're ready to go, let's boil this down. Now, first off, what am I talking about? You might have seen this blog post. Maybe you read it, maybe you didn't. Basically, raid and war season rewards and bi-weekly trials, which is every 2 weeks. So I'm not going to go over the raid and war season parts particularly. Essentially, the diamonds from raid seasons are being moved into war season. That's it. And so that's pretty much it. And you're gonna I think a lot of the reasons for that is because for free to play players, it was fairly easy to some degree to be able to score the diamonds in the raid. Well, I say that, but if you were doing the latest raid like Incursion 2, you would probably rank for that. Whereas, I think, and I can say this with probably 150 to 200% certainty, that there has been some I don't want to call it disappointment, but there's been some issues, I suppose, in the sort of Kraken Plus community that, free to play players getting a little bit too close to them with very, very little to spend or none at all. And so I think that's why a lot of this is being shifted over to the war season, and possibly some of the stuff coming up forward as well with the trials may be a result of some of that as well. So this is really interesting, and I was personally shocked when I read this, like, actually. So what's happening is that this current Green Goblin trial, and I just want to pivot very quickly to the game. So we have the Green Goblin trial going on wherever the hell mine is right here. I don't know why it shows the wrong picture. But anyways, this is for another 5 days, the Green Goblin Classic trial. You can click on it. There we go. There's Green Goblin. So that's available for another 5 days. But this is the last version that this one is going to be coming around. And what I mean by that is this is going to be the last time that it's going to have a leaderboard. So it seems that Green Goblin Classic is only having 2 iterations of the leaderboard version of this event where you get ranked reward payouts. Ignore that stuff because I assume that's going to go away. The first time rewards is, I mean, maybe it's not. I mean, they haven't said anything, have they? Actually, I'm assuming it's going to go away because that's a lot of additional shards. Maybe they're keeping it because there's only 2 iterations. Who knows, right? I mean, this is Scopely. So anyways, after this, it's no longer going to have the leaderboards in the ranking structure, and it's going to be the permanent version, I suppose, or the more permanent version where it comes back every 2 weeks, just like the Scourge events. So the design around legendary events has the intention of players building certain characters or teams and participating in an event to unlock a really powerful legendary character. After the current run of GGC, all trials will follow a similar schedule as the current Scourges, so Nova, Black Cat, and Green Goblin Classic. Now, I wasn't so surprised that they would do that for something like Nova or for even Black Cat, but for Green Goblin, who, we'll take a look. I'm pretty sure has not even been 4 months since like his first event. I'm really shocked that they're moving to what I would call a more permanent feature, because it's you're going to be able to do it on demand more or less, even though it's around every 2 weeks. That's still pretty good, and you can basically get that when you want to. So all 4 Scourges will run for 1 week. Then the following week, all trials will run. So that's the current 3, right? That's Nova, Black Cat, and Green Goblin. This bi-weekly rotation of Scourges and trials will start with all 4 Scourges on February the 12th, 2024. So 1 week after that, I guess. So February 19th, I suppose, would be the date that all the trials are going to run. That's a Monday as well. Maybe it might go sooner, but maybe that's when it's going to start. So Nova, Black Cat, and Green Goblin will run again on the 19th of February, which is, crazy, honestly. But what that means is that they're going to come back with, I'm assuming, with the more permanent version, which means that it's like the current Scourges where you're going to have to, if you want a 7-star, I don't know what it is because I don't quite remember what the milestones look like, but it's like D8. I'm assuming, especially for the trials, I'm assuming that's what it's going to be. Whereas you're going to need to run like a high D8 in order to get a 7 star. But even still, I'm just surprised because Green Goblin hasn't been out that long. And the question is, why is all of this happening? And I have a few theories and I have a few thoughts. And I think it's because free to play players are getting stars and unlocks too fast. Since we had the introduction of the Scourge events from Morgan Le Fay and the Four Horsemen, and then the trial events of the 7 legendary so far, it's been pretty easy to unlock. Like, let's be honest, let's be real. It's fairly easy to get a 3-star unlock. Like a lot of people can. If you try, you can get it no problem. And actually, I would say that for a good chunk of people who are doing D7, not even D8, but D7, could probably walk away with a 5-star on the first pass. And that is very easy to do for free to play players. So that part has been a really good thing for free to play players. But what hasn't been so good, I think, is that as a result of all of the players being able to access these characters very early on, that the divide between free to play and Krakens or Whales and Krakens and Cthulhu's hasn't really existed as much. We have the diamonds now, and so that kind of separates the powers. But I think on a whole, what's changed over the last couple of years to now is the way that we unlock legendaries. And now this is going to go back to basically people who have played this game for a very long time. And so we're gonna talk about that a little bit, right? Like the former cadence of legendary characters. So before Morgan Le Fay, essentially, was Omega Red and Adam Warlock. Those were the two, wherever my Adam Warlock is. Those were the two that were basically just before the Horsemen, who required obviously 5-star. So if you guys know that you need a 5-star for a specific set of teams, in this instance for Adam and Omega Red, you needed gear tier, a certain gear tier to run the events, but also a certain blue. I was going to say blue ISO, but green ISO I think it was at the time. And it wasn't as easy for free to play players to be able to get this entire team available at the 5-star range on the first pass. So for Adam Warlock, I know it's been so long, but Adam Warlock was X Factor Jubilee. Pretty sure, right? And Omega Red was Secret Avengers with Nick Fury and Winter Soldier. The main three that were new characters that were not farmable were Secret Avengers. And then for Adam Warlock, it was X Factor. Jubilee was already previously available, and so that wasn't too difficult there. So, what I think, and this is just one thought, is that we might be seeing a return to 5-star legendary unlocks. Now, this could mean one of two things. It could mean going back to the old legendary structure where we saw Adam Warlock and Omega Red in that kind of style where you have 5 characters to use to unlock. You need to get them at 5-star. Or we could still see the continuation of the Scourge and Trial type events, but instead of unlocking at 3-star, which is very free to play friendly, we might see this more at the 5-star level. And to give you guys some idea, is that basically to get a 5-star unlock on the first pass, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, that you kind of need to run D7 at a bare minimum, but that's the kind of level that you're competing at, D7, D8. And so I guess my thoughts overall with that is that it's more likely that they want to push you to actually have to use the 2 teams, right? And we knew that at difficulty 8 plus, at least with the current ones, that you need both teams. So for Green Goblin, that would be Rebirth and New Avengers. But I'm thinking that because on D7 and prior, that you're not actually forced to do that, you can just use the one team. That means their sales in certain teams are just not very good, right? Why they added Rebirth, I'm not entirely sure anyways. But the fact that it's only restricted at a certain difficulty means that you're not actually required to use or build these characters if you don't want to, right? Like you can do a D7 run with Rebirth if you want and not even touch New Avengers. So going forward with those kind of events, it could be the case that maybe we're going to start seeing that both teams or 2 teams are going to be required. They could even be 2 new teams, right? To kind of push spending. And that's the crux of it, really, is that they want to get people to spend more. And I think that this might have something to do with falling revenues. That's a good possibility. That maybe they're probably not making as much money as they used to, or that they were even like 6 months ago. Even though the game is in a pretty good state, I think that their ability to earn money, whether it's because whales and krakens are stepping back a little bit from spending, or there's just no real reason for free to plays or light spenders to spend more, right? Because we can all attest that the game is in a good spot for characters farmability wise, in my opinion. Feel free to correct me in the comments down below, but I think we're in a pretty good spot where they're actually making characters farmable within 3.5 to 4 months. Sometimes it's earlier. It's between that 3 and 4 month range, because the last character of the team, they made like 3 characters farmable all at once, and that last character is like 100 days. So it's well before the 4 month mark. And so they've been really good about that. But I feel that they can only give us so many things before they start to screw us over, right? Like there's only so much good things that can happen before something bad is going to happen. And that's what I think that this is going to be. We're going to see a shift in how we unlock and obtain legendary characters going forward. I have the strongest gut feeling that something is going to change, right? And I think that something is not going to be positive. I think it's going to be, on a whole, it's going to be negative for the player base, but it's going to be something that kind of separates the people towards the top from the people that are not at the top, right? And that could very well be just having easier access, sorry, for lesser players, or light spenders having a harder time to access these legendary characters. That's what I think it's going to come down to. And just to give you an idea about some of the stuff that I've been talking about, I wanted to pull up my character spreadsheet, but I wanted to reference this in terms of characters like Omega Red and Adam Warlock. I want to go back a little bit in here and kind of take a look at, like, okay, so for the teams that they used to unlock, where were they in the patch cycles? So here we had Omega Red, which was patch 5.7 in September 28th of 2021. It was a long time ago, 2.5 years ago now. And they used Secret Avengers, which was 2 patches before them. Okay. So that gives us a good idea. Now, things were different back then because we only had like 3 or 4 characters at a time. You could see 3 character patches, 4 character patches, 3 character patches. Now we have like 4, sometimes 5. It varies a little bit. Maybe they're going to go back a bit. Who knows? But that's kind of how things were back then. Infinity Watch was a 3 character patch as well. So Adam Warlock was also just before Secret Avengers. They used X Factor and Jubilee. So where was X Factor? Well, they were 2 multiple mana Polaris. Shatterstar and Longshot were well before that. They Dad Bros. That was a thing in the past. They came out earlier before that. So multiple mana Polaris though came 2 patches before Adam Warlock. So what does that tell you going forward? Well, let's scroll, all the way down to the bottom and where we're kind of at now. And so if we're due another legendary, usually they're 2 to 3 patches between each other, right? So we had Green Goblin, and then we have, ignore some of the stuff that I have down here, but we had the patch right now, which is the Extreme X-Men and Hive Mind. And then it could be this coming patch or the patch after. So what does that mean in terms of potential teams that would be usable for this next upcoming legendary, whether it's an event, whether it's a trial or a scourge or something, or a new term, or whether it's a flat, like kind of like a 5-star event. I think that you're going to be seeing either the Extreme X-Men or Hive Mind be a part of that. Depends on when it gets released. If it's next patch, I doubt that they would put Superior 6 in there, and I think things before that is well farmable. So it has to be like kind of new, like within 3 months, right? So really, it's Extreme X-Men, Hive Mind. Could be Hive Mind, because Hive Mind is actually rolling over into Red Goblin with the next patch. And then we could see we actually might see another just gap here before the legendary comes out, which is, people were saying it was the skill rated legendary character, but it seems like they're done with the trial system. We know that Mephisto is going to be coming out with Dark Dimension 7 in the not so distant future, probably in the next couple of months. Honestly, I would speculate end of April, mid-May, that kind of range for that patch, which I guess would be here, probably patch 7.9. I think in terms of character releases, we're going to have Red Goblin, Mercs for Money, Alpha Flight, and then there's going to be Mephisto in here somewhere with some Mystic raid team, and then there's going to be some skill raid team. I thought Mercs for Money was going to be a skill raid team, and they very well could be, right? They don't need a legendary necessarily anymore, because we're kind of maybe done or moving on from whatever this current legendary system is. But anyways, I think that something that we'll have to consider going forward is, and what I'm going to do personally, just in case, and I know it's very low odds, but I'm going to be saving my premium orbs going forward and my mega orbs in the event that I need to get a set of characters to 5-star through the bumps for a legendary event. If they lock it to star levels, I'm going to be kind of pissed, but I'm going to do the best that I can, or try to do the best that I can as a more free to play player to be able to accomplish that. Because keep in mind that with the current events, right, like we have Void Knight event going on right now, right? And you're very unlikely to walk away with more than a 3-star. That's just the facts, right? And so they're making it harder for us to get shards for characters in the short term, and I'm wondering if that's going to translate into a higher difficulty legendary event down the line because of that. And that they want people to spend. That this is really what it comes down to, is that they need more money. They want the players to spend. How do they do that? By creating FOMO, or fear of missing out, in legendary characters. And I think that's on the horizon. But hey, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this is not going to happen. Maybe the sky is not falling. But I think there's only so much they can give us before they give us something shitty. I meant to say something. They can only give so much good stuff until they throw something shitty at us. And I think that's on the horizon. But anyways, just my thoughts. That's the end of this video. And otherwise, have a great Thursday. And until next time, stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.